Hey, it's Wood Emily from Flowers and Scents with your floral industry buzz. Today we're going to interview Steve Daum. Steve Daum works for Floralife, which is owned by Smithers Oasis. And Steve and his late dad, Paul, basically have been involved in quality control their whole life. So let's find out why your flowers are lasting longer these days, because I think they have something to say about that. Steve Daum, welcome to Flowers and Scents, and a pleasure to have you here and to see your shining face there in New York or wherever you're at. Um, so, you and I have a long history, and your father and I have a history, and I wouldn't want to have this conversation without bringing him up because, unfortunately, this technology was not around for me to do this with him, or if it was, I didn't know about it. And 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 he sent me a whole bunch of documents because your father worked for the Glockner Company, the Fred C. Glockner Company, right? And
Yes, sir.
and he was sort of the Johnny Appleseed of flowers, I think, in South America and Central America. So, he sent me a whole document, a dossier of information, which frankly I couldn't make heads or tails of. It was a lot of data, but I'm not a scientist here, and he sort of wrote like one. Um, so let's talk about your father, Paul Daum, a little bit. Again, he worked for the Lochner Company, which was a seed company. So what happened next? How did he ended up in there in South America?
Yeah, actually, a little bit before that, he worked for the USAID, and he was hired in to go help Latin American countries, basically find an avenue to grow something that the U.S. could use, and therefore bring back on these flights that were going down to Latin America, and hopefully keep generate an economy which wasn't one that would be either illegal. And believe it or not, Willie, is the idea was to keep people in agriculture. These were agricultural people who needed an industry that the United States could take part in, to fund, also profit from. And the flower industry was one of several that were investigated by the USAID. And my dad was one of the guys who went down there and put boots on the ground with people who had valuable property in this idyllic location to grow flowers, which continues to be that. And he helped them do that. And the Gleckner Company was just the way, I guess, that was funded, because they would purchase products from the Gleckner Company in order to achieve that. So he really enjoyed it. And your father and my father knew each other well, because when the flowers finally got here, we had to move them about. And that's how you and I probably met each other at a very young age, fooling around in the
Yeah,
cooler on pallet jacks.
yeah, riding pallet jacks, yes,
Right, right. Where we weren't supposed to, right?
which we weren't supposed to do. Um,
Right.
yeah. Well, he sort of he's sort of one of the godfathers of this floral industry that we shouldn't forget because he basically not decided, but recommended what would grow where, what would grow in this altitude, what would grow in that altitude. This flower will grow, this flower won't grow, and and I was thinking this morning that ironically roses ended up being the sort of the major crop that's grown in South America, in Central America. I don't think he was
Dollar wise,
dollar
dollar
wise,
wise.
not
Yeah,
production wise.
not stem wise, right? Yeah.
Okay. Do do roses grow from a seed?
Well, at some point, yeah. But long story made short, basically the way that roses grow is from plant, X, double X, triple X plant, and that's a really good point. Not to veer off my dad or yours or anyone's, but basically what's happened is the breeders have really focused in on, and they're a part of the huge success that exists now, and hopefully will continue to exist. But breeders have figured out how to imagine put a little piece of one variety onto another rootstock, and then move that rootstock to another country, which then grows that bush, and which when we get the variety that was inserted into that other plant. And what I'm trying to say here, there's a lot of science. We're on the shoulders of a lot of people who understand um, the science of this. I work for a company, as you know, Oasis Floralife, um, and even in the trucking industry, which your family takes part in, there's been a lot of science which has really moved forward all with the goal of getting that homeowner, that U.S. homeowner, to really enjoy flowers. Really, in our short lifetime, people used to enjoy flowers for 3 to 4 days max. Now they're enjoying flowers 7, 10 days. People are really starting to get that enjoyment out of that purchase of the flower, which is really the goal of all of us, right? And so the flower purchase, and during this pandemic time, people are bringing flowers in and to their home and saying, "My God, I bought these last Friday. Here it's this Friday. I want to try another flower. I want to try something different." And they're enjoying that, which we see in other product lines. And so we're on the shoulders of these people, and your father, mine, and many other people's fathers, and hopefully will be remembered in the future as people who have also helped achieve that. And it's made quite an industry.
Yeah, and in my intro here, I basically said that you guys are responsible for making flowers last longer. And it's working because, yeah, I mean, my wife has been buying flowers for the same reason, the pandemic, and I'll bring flowers home. And I brought some Godetia home the other day, and 10 days later, I finally threw them out. So I was like, okay.
It's
I mean,
amazing, right? I mean,
yeah,
before
I
that,
mean, who would have thought? They all
well,
open.
before you couldn't get Godetia too much out of your garden. Right now we're shipping them all over the world. Yeah.
It's really true. And I planted a little rose bush in my backyard here, and the blooms last about a day,
Right.
2 days maybe. I don't know. And I'm like, wow. And this same kind of plant, it's in South America, grown to 10,000 feet or whatever, and it takes a week to get off the, there to here to there to here to here, and still they're going to last 7 days or 10 days on your table. So I think we all have.
Willie, we're moving them by boat now. We're moving them by plane. I mean, so just imagine. And so we're getting flowers year round all over the country, and the experience is continuous and it's great. And a lot of people are doing a lot of work to make sure that happens. That's great news. I'm glad you're noting it.
Yeah, it's become obvious to me that these really are lasting longer. I mean, I recognize as a consumer that flowers at some point didn't last too long. And they sort of are a pain in the ass sometimes because by the time you made all the arrangement, and then 2 days later you were picking them out. And now you can pretty much take that same. I see some in the background there. You can pull out a couple dead flowers maybe and cut them down a little bit more and continue to have an arrangement go another week. So even gladiolas last a long time now. I mean, a lot of flowers that just couldn't do it anymore or couldn't make the trip are now making the trip. So I'm excited about that. All right, so then and you came along obviously as your father did, and you didn't originally work for Floralife, or did you? What's your history?
No, I didn't actually. I was real fortunate to work for a gentleman by the name of Peter Ulrich.
Yes.
And he owned a company at the time called Condor Farms, and basically he had farms in 7 countries, from Mexico, Costa Rica, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru. Long story made short, good way to wet your beak, demanding role. I had just gotten my bachelor's and was working on my master's degree, and I started to work for him at that time. And long story made short, it was a 2.5, almost 3 year bath in a real challenging role. And to be honest with you, I think that really gave me a good global vision. I don't know if you remember, but Mr. Ulrich actually had part in an airline, so he was quite a bit. Yeah.
Well, we could go on all day about Peter Ulrich because
right. But long story made short, then from there I had the pleasure of stepping over to work for Floralife, and Floralife is one of the companies in the industry that has worked really well with the industry globally, and takes part in problem solving for people. Real proud to work with this company. Oasis Floralife is one of those companies that has their ear to the ground and looks for opportunity by solving issues. And we've done that quite a bit.
And we, as I've interviewed some Smithers people, and one of the things I learned about Smithers Oasis, it's way bigger than anybody thinks it is. It's a
global company. Yeah, they got their hands in a lot of places.
Yeah, it's a global company, a big one. So, and I was happy when I saw they bought Floralife. I thought it was a good synergy.
Was, and it is, and it continues to be. And we continue to look for new opportunities, and we're doing a lot of our R&D is based near the equator for obvious reasons. That's where flowers are grown for the most part. And what's more exciting is, although I may not see it all happen, but what's coming soon, from what I'm allowed to know about and what I see and what I test, what's coming soon is exciting.
Well, that's a teaser.
It'll,
That's a nice little teaser. So something's coming, but you're not going to tell me what it is.
well, no, no, but what we're working on a daily basis, to, I mean, not to tease. I mean, right now we're working on perfecting. We see that there's a new channel opening up, which is farm direct shipping. We see companies opening up in Ecuador and Colombia, for example, that'll FedEx you a box, farm direct. So that generates a huge challenge on the cold chain, and what that does to the flower quality. So basically, you have to prepare the flower for that difficult transportation, and when you receive the flower, you have to have the equipment and the tools to rehydrate to assure the customer still gets those 7 to 10 days full development, and that's where Floralife plays a great role. And even the Oasis company and the technology of their floral foam when used. So what I'm trying to say is it's not a tease. We're working on what to do with the flower at post-harvest or even pre-harvest, and then assuming this difficult channel movement to the marketplace. And then when you receive these flowers, what are the protocols you have to follow to assure that you get that your customer gets this experience? Because they don't really care that what they want is the experience, right? They're not going to give you a pass because you did something wrong or didn't do something correctly, right?
Hmm. Hey, I think hydrangeas perhaps are a good example of
Great example.
your technology because 10 years ago, or I was trying to sell hydrangeas and they were hard to sell because they didn't last very long, and the
That's
people
right.
didn't know how to handle them. And now it's one of the major crops coming out of Medellin. It's amazing.
And and by the way, not the a little bit, we only play a small role. The growers are doing unbelievable work. The breeders are doing unbelievable work. The cold chain, the trucking companies, everybody has to come into, and hydrangeas are a great example. This is what we call a very hydration sensitive crop, one that without a doubt generates a lot of difficulty. And when things are done incorrectly, the consumer or the receiver of the product recognizes it. But we had developed products specifically for hydrangea because of the specific needs. And that is a good example. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. And by the way, now we see hydrangeas in mixed bouquets, which means that they will last as long as it's incredible, right?
Yeah, and before that was a no-no. And the hydrangea is such a great flower because it's a big flower, big showy thing, and it makes an arrangement already.
And then we're seeing interesting colors. We're seeing not only the whites and the blues and the pinks, we're seeing now even versions of greens and stuff like that. And there again, that's where the science starts, and it's really cool.
So essentially, you as Floralife, you work between the breeders and the growers to try to figure out what makes sense or what's not making sense. Is that right?
Well, we play an interesting role, and it's really been a pleasure and an honor to do this. So we're not the bouquet company. We're not the let's take the supermarket channel or the e-commerce channel, the ones that I work mostly with. So we're not the grower, the breeder, the grower, the bouquet maker, the shipper, the trucking company. So we're not any of those, but we play a role in all of those, whether it be Ethel and the truck treatment, whether it be post-harvest treatment. So we've actually done a good job. I hope you feel this way, and other people do too, of problem solving when things don't go right, or when we're trying something new. We're one of several people, I assume, that are brought into how can we do this. And the e-commerce is a great example. We played a great role with our e-commerce customers in helping them overcome the breaking of the cold chain, even as something as the coating of the box, in which the e-commerce, we've actually helped testing the box manufacturer, and we play a great role in that. I shouldn't say a great role, we play a role in that. So we're one of many people who do this kind of stuff, but Floralife has allowed me personally to take part in these things. And it's really the part of the industry I enjoy when things aren't working correctly. We have a lot of PhDs globally. We work with PhDs that don't work with us, but we actually partner with them. We work with universities globally. So we have the resources to touch base and to solve the problem. And then hopefully we gain a customer with that. That's kind of the way we do it. And we're known for that, including Armalini Trucking Company. We work with you guys.
Well, our fathers were quite involved in quality. Quality was important to them. So, Steve, I know with the challenges we've had recently with transportation, flights out of Ecuador and Colombia have been less reliable than they ever were, which again puts more challenging situations for your flowers because they're being stressed here, or they're sitting at the airport longer, or they're being handled. That's what's going on there. Is that
Yeah, no, great observation. What we're seeing is there are airlines that are getting into the industry because opportunities are opening up, because there's less flights down to Latin America. So we're seeing flowers not take the ideal route to the marketplace. And what we're doing is we're seeing a very inconsistent movement of the product, whether there's too much waiting at Latin America. And I use Bogota out of a default, but it could be Quito, could be Medellin, could be San Jose. So what we're seeing is kind of a jerky motion of the product coming to a very demanding market, because the product here is not waiting. There's a huge demand right now. Yes. So what we're seeing is inconsistent cold chain. And unfortunately, it's the one thing flowers don't adapt to well. I mean, you can help with the ethylene, you can help with a lot of fungal bacterial. You can do a lot of things there, but when it comes to the cold chain, when it's not respected, the flower really pays the price. And what we are seeing is a very inconsistent movement currently into the marketplace, maybe due to pricing pressures because of the cost of things. But I hate to come out and say this, but the airlines, they could be helping us better. The airlines kind of are throwing us to the side a little bit. There is money to be made, probably moving something else. And I know probably flowers don't pay the ideal price, what they would wish we would be paying. But we have been there for many years for them. We have been the backhaul for many, many tons and cubic feet of space on the airlines. I wish the airlines would think about that, remember that, because the game is long. And when their honeymoon is over for moving very expensive things, hopefully they'll remember that the flower business has been there for them as they have been there for us, and we can partner a little better. But I don't see that partnership really being great right now. That's my opinion.
It's stressed. They're looking for revenue, and flowers are not always the best place. And that leads me to containers. I think there's less containers coming just because there's not enough production to fill them. Is that true?
I don't know about the volume, but it's complicated. The container shipping out of LAR, which Latin American region, is actually a little bit difficult on their side due to COVID issues and stuff like that. Some of the ports are difficult. Flowers are still coming by containers. These are people who have a process already in place. Long story made short, we haven't seen the growth pattern that we were enjoying in 2019. Pandemic slowed that. Yeah, I've been trying to get numbers for a presentation I have to make in the near future, and they have not been good, and then they've been erratic. So depending on what port where, I do see though the container as being maybe not the sole way to move flowers, but it'll be one of several. And in the future, I think the container business will be there as part of the program. I don't see the airlines flowers stopping moving by airplane completely. I still see that the major volume will become by airplane. We're only 3.5 hours away from where they're grown. That's too ideal. And there'll always be movement of cargo. But the containers will be an option, and it'll take some pressure off the airline industry certain times of year. And I also think it'll also keep the economic pressure off too. So as long as there's another option, it'll keep in check the pricing. But
one last question here. I've been reporting that the demand for flowers is great. The production is marginalized. The transportation is difficult. The bouquet makers have been buying up all the small growers and blah blah blah, and all those things together. One of the things I sort of didn't mention, because it's always a constant, is the weather. So the weather in South America has not been particularly good for production, right?
From what I understand, low temperatures are slowing, not uncommon. What's happening are the same thing that's happening on our world. The extremes have become more extreme.
Right.
But lower temperatures have slowed down, especially in Ecuador, I understand from my reporting. People tell me but I don't see that as being a major issue. I think the pandemic slowed production down. They are wrestling with pandemic issues just as we are here. Labor costs have gone up. And by the way, the people who sell the plant material to the growers, they also went into a pandemic. So to revamp that, you don't just go out into the field and start shipping plant material. You have to restart the machine all over again. Yeah. And that's taking time. And by the way, that's a global issue. That's just not there. And then the final thing that I think we all have to remember about these growers, they are having a hard time getting in order to grow greenhouse structure, labor, and the same things we're having there are happening there. And it has slowed that growth. And it hasn't really been that much time. It's just we're so used to immediate movement.
Right.
It takes some time. It's just what it is.
And let's face it, they're having bigger COVID issues. Well, I don't know about bigger, but anyway, they're deep in COVID for sure still.
Right. And then one last thing, the other channels of the flowers, the wholesale channel and the e-commerce channel are also booming. Yep. So flowers will move to the more profitable channel. And now other parts of the world are awakening, and Latin American region flowers move all over the world. So flowers will find the most profitable channel, just like everything else does. So yes, we are fighting for our stems, and I think that's just part of business right now.
Well, Mr. Steve Daum, thank you for our 20 minutes of fame here. It goes quickly when we're talking, and again, we could talk about Peter Ulrich and his in contribution to the industry and your dad for a long time. So I think in the interest of our keeping this short, I will ask you to have a great day and enjoy your time. And thank you for coming on Flowers and Scents and spending a little time with us.
Really a pleasure and an honor. Anytime.
Take care. Enjoy. Thank you.
Bye-bye.